Happy Friday afternoon for me. LinkedIn is a good time. I can't think of a better way to end my Friday than talking about some AI breakthroughs that Nico just had. How you doing, man?
Doing well, sir. And likewise, I mean, the timing on this couldn't have been any better because this dropped. I don't know when the exact timing was on this, but it was today. And it definitely wouldn't have been like earlier because I know that we were planning on running this earlier, and it was let's see, it actually dropped a couple days ago. It just didn't really surface until now, which is amazing to me. But yeah, a lot of new, just a lot is going to come from this. It's one update, but it's the most massive update that's happened since like GPT launch.
Well, let's get into it. Tell me what's going on, man.
All right. So we're good. We're all good.
We're good.
Acurai is another large language model company, and everybody else has been working on output, maximizing power, capability, reasoning. Not too many people focused on hallucination specifically and reducing hallucination. That's kind of just been a part of like, okay, well, as we work along, we'll try to figure out what we can do to reduce hallucination too. And I think a lot of that has probably leaned a little bit on the assumption that, well, if we just quote, make it smarter, then it will understand not to hallucinate, or it'll understand to always say the right thing and not say the wrong things anymore. End quotes, let's say. And I think that, yeah, that really kind of just went by the wayside. So Acurai is this LLM company. They developed a model, and it has 100% accuracy. I'll give you
So,
a couple seconds to take that in.
yeah, take me through that. And if you want to share, I see it's a Medium articles that
Mm-hmm.
I'm not able to access. But if
Oh,
that helps, if not, we can just talk through it. So, uh, yeah, move us through, which I'm sure you just said in a different way, but if you can
no.
reiterate what that means exactly.
So this is the really interesting point with AI to me, because since the beginning, like since 22, since it went public to everybody else, um, and I shouldn't say AI, I'm going to be proper here. Generative AI text to generative text, really. Since that became like super popular, I have been waiting for the day that it was released in November is when I turned around and I told my wife, the truth is over. It's over now. Like, you will never ever from this day forward be able to tell whether or not a piece of content that you're reading, looking at, watching, whatever, has been generated by a person or whether it was first put through a machine. Because even if it's, let's face it could be us. We're talking now. We could be reading off of something that we put together in GPT. President has already said he's, read a former president's already said he's read a speech that was written from current presidency looking into using language models in order to help shape internal things in government. And why not? I trust that more than I do officials.
Yeah.
So, the biggest holdback is what? The idea of hallucinations, the ability for the model to get it wrong. And what I've been waiting for since the beginning is the philosophical discussions around what it is that we're doing, what it is we're creating, because I think a lot of people don't realize and put the two together that, look, we're building our own brains from the outside in. So we're trying to figure out how we work, and we don't even understand how we work, right? I'm saying words now. I don't necessarily know what's prompting them to come out of my head, the chain of things that I'm going to talk about, right? They're kind of based off of the previous words or statements that I'm making. Not necessarily like I don't know where it's going in my brain to access these bits of information or words or whatever. Impossible for me to do that. Yeah, of course we can take a look at EKGs and we can see what parts of your brain fire up and what does certain things. Seeing sections of your brain light up according to things doesn't that's not much of a blueprint. It's so much of a rough blueprint. It's not really worth looking at. Um, we know how to light up certain sections of the brain now on a more detailed basis. Neuralink is part of that process. We have new forms of hearing aids that also use part of that process. That they're nerve based as opposed to being acoustic based. We're getting there, but we're not even close. I don't think we're not even close. What's funny is that we are figuring it out though from a mechanical standpoint, and we're starting to sort of understand how it is that we do these things. I would love to know what the logic is behind Acurai's model, just to see what that looks like from a non-hallucinating bot, like what the reasoning looks like there. Um, so what this translates to is if you think about hallucinations and what it is and what that means, I dislike the word and the term, a lot of the terms that we use, prompting, things like that, because they are specific to identifying what we're doing is working with a tool rather than a thing or a being or a person per se. Not that I'm trying to, or that, you know, it it's proper to anthropomorphize it, but I think that it serves a better purpose to do so. I think the interaction becomes better when you anthropomorphize it as opposed to acting as if it's just a tool. That being said, hallucinations to me are the same things as I don't knows or bullshit. I just
Or
bullshitted
yeah,
you. I
I
gave you
don't
an
know, and I'm
answer.
trying to tell you that I do.
Right. The
Yeah.
underlying premise of these models is I'm here to help you. I'm here to help facilitate and answer your question as best I can, right? And if I don't know the answer, I'm going to best I can. And if best I can wasn't good, okay, but it was the best I could, right? The only reason we don't like it is because humans don't do that. Humans will actually say, I don't know, right? So we're actually, we have a threshold at some point, but there are humans who don't say, I don't know. And they do kind of flub and generalize the answer based on what the question was, right?
Just a few.
So, yeah. So if you think of hallucinations as, fibs, then fibs or misinterpretations or, mislabeling of data, then having 100% accuracy entails never getting a single question wrong, ever. And it's a machine. So the the words that always
including
keep, yeah,
including I don't knows.
there is, so that's the thing to remove from the equation.
Okay.
There is no more I don't know, right? So like in other words, if it's, and I say that because I'm thinking too far ahead. There may be I don't knows currently. There might be data that you ask it about that it doesn't actually have an understanding of or a knowledge of. That would be impressive to me at this point, but I'm sure it's feasible. In that instance, yes, I would imagine that it comes back and says, sorry, I don't know. I don't have that information. Can't help you out. What I imagine it is, I mean, at this point, there's so much information that we've shoved into these models that it's gotten to the point that we're now having to edit and trim that information because we want only the high quality versions of that. We don't even want just everything, right? If you think about what we're doing as building a car, all we're really doing right now is working on the engine, and we're kind of modifying some parts of the engine. So like we've changed prompting, right? So we've kind of like modified the cylinders a little bit, and we changed out belts because, we added memory capability, and, then we added custom instructions to it, and now we've increased the context window a bit, and now we've added functionality, multimodality. So we're adding on and doing more and more and more things to this. And as we're moving ahead, it's actually getting to the point where if you look at the models, the size of each individual model is coming down while the like exponential power of it is getting larger. The amount of
No,
resources that's needed to run it is
yeah,
coming down.
that was gonna be my question. Yeah,
It is this
that's good.
very odd
That's
thing
important.
that it's like the first technology that we've dealt with that has reverse profitability in a sense. It becomes cheaper. The greater it becomes, the cheaper it becomes, the more efficient it becomes. It's an auto efficiency. So it will
Right.
never be inefficient. It will never be more expensive. It will never be more. It will always be like better, just less, like even better than before, right? Like
In
this is the
theory,
point at which it gets like, yes, gets a little eerie, gets a little scary, gets a little like starts raising some hairs a little bit because,
I mean, in
you know,
theory, like to stick with your analogy of what we do and don't know about our brain and our whole bodies for that matter, like in theory, that's our evolution as well, right? Like we get
mm-hmm,
more efficient and,
yeah,
more effective and less calories. are needed to do the same things, and you know, so hopefully we
Exactly.
can learn from the. I don't know that we can't because we can't really. Well, we probably will be able to modify that to some
Well,
extent.
I,
Um,
it's like I say, I'm very, very nose to the ground, so it's hard for me to stay away from it. And that being the case, I also follow a lot of the, surrounding either other model creators like Stephen Wolfram or Dario Amodei from Anthropic, which to add to this story a little bit, both OpenAI and Anthropic have reviewed Acurai's work, and they both have concluded like, yeah, no, it's definitely 100% accurate. So
so
it's
what does
it's
that mean for the rest?
so what it means for the rest is more than likely, I don't know how Acurai is going to go about it. Either it will be something that they have to purchase, maybe it stays in house, but whatever methodology they used, so far, most of the AI sphere, when they come up with a new methodology, they publish the paper. They don't necessarily keep it in house because it seems as though it's a very nice collective effort of let's all get better together. So I imagine that that's going to go through, especially with OpenAI and Anthropic having looked at it and evaluated it. I'm sure that they now also kind of know how to tweak their models a little bit and like what they need to do. So I think that's going to increase, obviously it's going to become 100% accurate across the board for all models. Why shouldn't it be? It makes sense to create a moat based on capability right now is just a really bad idea.
Yeah.
And the other part is stop thinking about moats. Like it's just like Wall Street really needs to stop because like
Uh,
they don't know what they're doing. They don't understand it. And that's totally fine, but stop guessing because like you're just making it worse by guessing. Um, there isn't a moat that's needed. This isn't a product, it's a technology. Um, it's a means and a way of life. It's not a service, right? So it's something like, and like I said, it literally has diminishing diminishing value return, like whatever you want to
right.
call it. It doesn't get more expensive. It doesn't get higher value. It gets cheaper and more easy. And I mean, look, if you have a laptop and you're in the, Kalahari, you can whip that out, pull up GPT-4, and there's your window to knowing how to do anything and everything that comes into your head, right? Short of, destructive stuff, of course, which should be the case. But with this being 100% accurate across the board, what does that mean? That means medical GPT is now 100% accurate. When you ask for a diagnosis, either it knows it or it doesn't. And so either the diagnosis you get, if you do get the diagnosis, it's 100% accurate.
Man.
Like I just sent this stuff to my brother and my wife, and what the quote that I put on there was, "It's over."
Ring
And
the
that's the only
bell.
thing I really can say is because like all of this stuff where just think the last year and a half, every single time you've heard anybody say the adoption rate is about to just skyrocket. The amount of money that's going into the AI market is about to skyrocket. Like the only holdback to this technology from enterprise and from everyone else has been, yeah, but sometimes it gets shit wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, well now it doesn't. So now
Right.
what? Like just if you weren't getting into generative AI before, I don't know what you've been doing for 2 years. I don't know where you've been sleeping, what rock you've been under, but wake
You've
up
been
now
hanging
because
on to
it's
those. You've been hanging on to those instances where it's not right.
yeah,
And now
yeah,
you don't have that. So it's going to be interesting because this is where, like, if you know that as a clinic or a hospital,
hmm
the interesting part, like, when you say it's over, basically have the whole ecosystem of the United States that says it's over when we say it's over, right?
yep, yeah,
Because no matter
regulation
how
and government,
bad a hospital wants to use it, this stuff's going to have to go through like FDA
yep.
and all that stuff. And there's a lot of people that don't want this future,
Oh, trust
like
me,
the ones that want the most, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And like you say, it's like building a moat around the internet, right?
hmm
Like can't can't do that anytime anybody comes close to like suggesting it, like with regular, like no chance. Um, And so, yeah, this is going to be, and this is where, like, if you are the profitable aspect, the fact that,
Now hold on, because we're one step away. We're 4 months away from having the most transformative technology. Like everybody keeps thinking that like this, like generative text is the most transformative thing. And the way I look at it is like, no, it's the LLM itself. It's that capability, the capability of something to take English language or to take language and translate it to something else. Because the most complex coding that you could ever possibly come up with is language. It's not numbers. It's not math, right? Like math can get like really super, super complex, but that's just really like for programmatic stuff. It's I don't know, it's Lincoln Log basically, like trying to do
right?
that with verbs. If you were yeah. Anyway, so
Well, here's
point
what,
being that what's that?
like, what I was going to say is so you have people in general, you have these two sides where it's like people that just want to do good and help
Mm-hmm.
people, generally offset by the people that want to make money, right?
Yeah,
Now, if it truly is just straight profit, for lack of a better phrase, you won't have that, right? So, like, if you have both sides aligned on this, this is the kind of stuff that's like impossible to stop. It's just a matter of when, right?
yep,
And like how fast do people let it go?
exactly.
Because like,
And
what
look,
kind of case are you going to be able to make for why we shouldn't, right?
the weird thing is, and I shouldn't say it's weird. The awesome part is, the awesome part is that this technology enables you to subvert the regulation, whether they like it or not, right? So if I walk into a hospital after having used medical GPT and it's 100% accurate, and I put my symptoms in and it told me what's wrong, and it told me that I needed like doctor attention at a hospital or whatever, and I go in and I tell them exactly what's wrong with me, right? I have saved them a lot of time and a lot of headaches and all that kind of thing. And especially if it's telling me what the treatment is and I can tell them, what I need in terms of treatment or whatever, so much the better. Um, Tim Cook was talking about this a couple months ago because you take this type of accuracy, a medical GPT, plug that into an Apple Watch, and you have constant 24/7 healthcare surveillance of what's going on with you on a lot of different levels. And again, like this 100% accuracy thing is so very important, like in terms of like how much upset it will cause, right? Because it's a thing of like now where we were saying like, oh yeah, whatever, like you can't, to your point, like you
Yeah,
just can't say it now. And pretty soon we're going to be having autonomous agents, and that is going to make this stuff look like Lincoln Logs, right? Like a single agent is going to be useless pretty soon. Like you're really not going to necessarily want to use that. You'll use it literally for simplified tasks, and otherwise you'll be using an autonomous agent, right? And the concern with the use of autonomous agents from a lot of people in the community was, okay, but if we're already having hallucinations, then what are you going to do? Use an agent to purchase tickets for you to go to, Ireland and end up in Belize, right? And then like you've rented a car in China while you're at it, right? So it's like, yeah, that would be like pretty terrible. Now it won't. Like now I have 100% confidence that it's gonna get it right because it will.
yeah. And this,
Well,
man,
imagine 100% accurate written code that like, hey, your phone stops having bugs, your software stops having bugs, right? Imagine software that actually worked and didn't crash randomly and didn't have these weird things that just like randomly pop up
right.
and
And
all
what
that.
comes to mind is like managed services, that whole business model, right? Like
Hmm.
things like that where you make your money off of the gray space, the we're not sure, to let's try it out. Like we just need to be there in case anything happens. Like, well, even if we know it's not going to happen, so like that's going to be the motion, the momentum that gets in the way of this. Um, because
Yeah.
then it's going to be a question for even the biggest companies. It's like, okay, we're making this much money in the gray space. How
Hmm.
much do we have to make with the 100% no gray space in order for us to make sense to go that way? Because there's a whole, like, you have to reskill
Hmm.
everybody, which you should be able to do. And that's where, like, if there are no moats, like, it just gets easier to do that. But
Well, and that's kind of to what we were talking about earlier, that now that we have this technology, it is upon the business to, I don't know, mature and act like a business and actually do something other than make money, like run the business, right? So
yeah,
you're going to have to actually get your hands dirty and figure out, how do I repurpose these employees and use AI and teach them how to use AI to enable them to expand another part of my business, right? So if it's a case where maybe you have, even when it comes to CS or when it comes to call centers, if it's a case where you have like a call center manager and it was, 9 people or something like that, now it's like a call center manager and like a bot, let's say, that's handling some stuff. Okay, but you still need like a person to sort of watch over it. So maybe you have that person watching over, part of the system. Maybe you start another system for like EU. So now, another person from that team manages the EU team. Somebody does like Asia, somebody does Africa, somebody does, Europe, whatever. Sorry, EU, same thing. But, that way you can sort of, again, like look at how you can expand your business in some way. When Walmart started putting in self checkout, everybody was getting all up in arms about it. And then all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, Walmart had grocery delivery. Figure out, so
yeah,
like you've been sitting on some business idea that you've had, some expansion idea that you've had, that you've probably said, if only I had the hands to be able to do this, if only I had the resources to do it, you do, right? And putting the automation and the AI in place is seriously cost effective. So considering that you get to replace, in some cases, a whole department of overhead with just one system now what can you do with that department, right? What else can you do? What more can you reach for?
so let's add some tangibility here. Uh, Hub helper Harry. So based on what you've already said, ChatGPT gonna make tweaks, eventually get to the 100% themselves. Hub helper Harry is based on that. If I am like, what should I? How do I relate that to my need in relationship to HubSpot? And like, does that? Where does it? Where's the disconnect between accuracy? Because I would imagine like at that level, the prompting, what I'm asking for becomes ultimately still the most important thing, but even more like I can only expect 100% accuracy if it has perfect information to work with. Is that fair?
Um,
Including like you have
I,
stated your need clearly.
I wouldn't say that. I would say I would say that you should think about it more along the lines of, if the information that you're querying about isn't anywhere to be found, that's when it's going to come back and be like, no, sorry, man, I don't know. But if there is some information in there that is relative to what it is that you're querying about, it'll likely serve that up. But at least you'll know that it's from the actual data. So point being that, like, when it does reply, you know that it's a reliable reply. You know that it's a reliable response, that it's not just trying to throw some things together. Currently, I have no problem admitting it because it happens, because hallucinations are a thing. And I try as best I can. I test different rule sets and instructions like every week to try to constrain the model to keep it from doing these things. Um, it surprises me how much I am able to program and how much I can't, or how much I can get it to do, but then how limited it is. Using the same methodologies in another way doesn't work sometimes. So anyhow,
Yeah, I
currently
used
if you
to.
ask it for something, it might tell you to use like an option or something that might not exist. It's a really, really, really small likelihood, but it can do that. So I seriously look forward to the 100% version, because then I don't have to worry about that. And I would much rather get the user feedback of, hey, I asked it for this and it didn't know the answer, then, hey, I asked it for this and it told me the wrong answer. Telling me the wrong, like that it told you the wrong answer, that's super hard for me to fix. But that it didn't give you the answer, that's easy. I just go get the information, put it in the bot, and
And that's where, like, so what comes to mind? So this week, for the first time, I created properties via the API, thanks to Hub Helper Harry.
following.
Yeah, showed me how to set up, uh, I forget which site it is, but one of the sites where I can access the API. I wanted it to do all the properties at the same time. Didn't have the patience to get there. But part of that was like it was giving me instructions on how to use the platform, and I couldn't see that. Like it was like import a file, import the data file, like go here, click import, and I'm like, I am there. There's
Yeah,
no import button, right?
right.
So there's still an element of it,
It makes assumptions where it's like, hey, if you're on this screen, this button should be available because it
right?
seems like it should be there.
But and that's where like we're not yet at the real time, like knowing the whole internet at all times spot, right?
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
that and like I only wish that I could have it live update to like a Google file that I update every so often or something like that. But I have to actually manually go and collect all the API updates, go collect all of the web updates, and lately when that's making it seriously hard for me. The fact that there are like 6, 7, 8 updates every day that are being made now is making it extremely difficult to keep up with. Um,
yeah,
but
because
yeah,
literally, like we only if you're there to do that, the only information that is missing is when there's no developer doc or no knowledge base, doc to support the functionality that we're currently looking at. And we know that happens a
mhm,
lot right now. But I think that is that kind of the next step, like when it's truly over, when it's when it like on the internet that it doesn't know yet, like it's always 100% up to date, these
yeah,
models.
yeah. I mean, I honestly like I've been there was a interview with Eric Schmidt that was done at Stanford, and Stanford was gutsy enough to actually load it or upload it, and then rightfully so take it down like about a couple hours later. And that's because Eric Schmidt, who's the former CEO for Google, was basically discussing a lot of what we've talked about, which is how many advancements are out there that make things seriously cost effective that even our government isn't putting into place yet, just because of how cost effective it is, how much disruption it could cause. You know,
Oh yeah, there's a
we
lot
sit
of
here and talk about awesome, but you're the first person to remind me that like, hey, but you're talking about a whole industry of people there. And it's like, yeah, that's right. Like,
yeah. No, there's like I learned that about the pharma industry. Like there's non-zero number of situations where things could be cured,
mm,
right? Or
yep,
or like we could eradicate this in places, but there's no way to make that profitable, so it does not happen,
yeah,
right?
yep.
Um, so that's what's going to be. I mean, all this is going to be interesting. Like, just imagine a world of just 100% transparency at all times.
That's what I'm
Like,
really looking forward to is,
right?
you know, as much as the stock market is a perfect example because as much as they are trying to fight it as hard as they can, they really can't. They can't fight the fact that there's really no manipulation to be had with any of these companies. Um, they are only ever going to get more important, become more useful, and be partnered with and purchased a lot more. Um, Again, with this 100% accuracy, like that is going to boost sales like there's no tomorrow. Anybody who is thinking about building a model is definitely going to start building it now. People who have built models already will start doing even more work on them. And we've already reached the point when this all first started. I think they were spending about 150 million dollars to train models. Then they were spending close to what was it? Something that was close to like $10 million to train a model. Then all of a sudden it got to 150 mil. And then out of nowhere, it was like, hey, it's costing us $1 billion for the next model, right? We are already on the versions that, like the next versions that get released, like 3.5 Sonnet is an example of like what $1 billion trained model is like. And 3.5 Sonnet is the low end of the 3.5 class. So 3.5 Opus is supposed to be coming out later this year. When Anthropic says something's happening, it's actually going to happen. So it will be out later this year. I'm a little bit, apprehend, like they are smart in that they keep it from having internet access. So I'm, it's like, okay, that's very safe of you. It's very responsible of you. GPT, on the other hand, not so much. And what's different, and I don't know if this is going to be true about Opus, but 3.5 Sonnet, two things are happening that are really important. 3.5 Sonnet was partially trained on synthetic data. People in the AI industry have been saying that synthetic data is dangerous because it could cause recursive intelligence failure, so that the model just garbles up on its own stuff and spits out the same answers all the time, and it just becomes terrible. The only reason that you would ever use synthetic data is if the data that was output was actually better than the training data that you were giving it, right? So considering 3.5 is partially synthetic data, that should raise some hairs on some people, but it didn't seem to do anything. Strawberry, which is the model that OpenAI has, that is like in development way behind closed doors, that the government is now taking a look at, has generated, they put two Strawberry models together, and the two of them combined have generated all of the data that will be running the next model that is released. So there's three statements to try to understand there. One, a model is going to be released that is lesser than the models that they are still working with. That's this is first case scenario. Okay. Normally when we get a model, and what I mean by that is we're going to get 5 while they are still working with 6. So it's not a case of like, we're going to get 5 while they still have 5.5 or they still have like 5.5 turbo or something. No, they're on the next generation. And if you look at the differences in the generations, we're talking anywhere between 50 to 100 fold in terms of capability. Capability being ability to reason, which is pretty much the most important aspect of it. So you've got 100% synthetic data, which means that you no longer need human input. So two things: you're getting a downgraded model, and it's built on non-human data. It still performs at a much higher level than GPT-4 does now. It has higher level reasoning, and it's soon to have 100% accuracy. So like the statement, when I say like it's over, that I always say that because of the fact that it is like all encompassing. It's like, hey, you can now build a model with no training data and have it be 100% accurate. So the whole thing of like all the lawsuits of training data, they'll all settle now because it's over. They don't need it anymore. So they'll just settle for whatever the price tag is. And that's what they were waiting for. And 2 years to stall people in court is nothing. It probably cost Microsoft at most a couple $1 million or something. So I think this is more pivotal in my opinion. I'm sure other people are not going to think so, but this is more pivotal in my opinion than when Sora was released. This is a seriously pivotal moment in what we're doing with generative AI. Since the technology got released public, this is definitely the next most important step with it. Because post this, I can't wait. Like the adoption is just going to go through the roof now.
Right. So to end on, like we got Inbound coming up, and
Oh man,
there's a
that's
lot
going to be
of
stuff.
expectation about AI this, AI that. One, does this, I'd have to say like Dharmesh is aware as well, and would do anything in his power to leverage this as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Is that possible? Like prior to Inbound, like how, like continues to evolve and it relies on GPT. Like where is there anything that we know about right now where this would have, like, let's say as soon as GPT said they're 100% accurate, like
Mm-hmm.
what would we feel in a HubSpot portal, if anything?
Look, I'm not shy of it. There is a day that Harry's not going to be useful anymore, right? That will definitely be the day that the API key links to a model that's 100% accurate, right? Especially given that it's ChatSpot, because it'll be loaded with, you know, all HubSpot data plus portal data and also be 100% accurate. So it will kind of, it may do away with the need for it. At that point, the only thing I think it changes things for people in the HubSpot world where content that you write now becomes more powerful, content that you create becomes more powerful. The the usability becomes better. I think a lot of the AI tools that we have in there now that are still, a lot of them are seriously lacking. I think those get a huge shot in the arm and they start becoming much more accurate. So, I mean, I look forward to it. I think that the portal in and of itself, like altogether, is going to become smarter. What I'm really looking forward to and what I would like to hear, though I doubt we're going to hear anything about it, even though it's right around the corner, to have to wait until next year to hear about this is going to be somewhat disappointing. So I kind of hope we hear something about it this year. I really want to see what they're doing with AI agents. Salesforce just released a statement this morning that they're going to be diving into that pretty heavily. HubSpot was slightly behind Salesforce in their AI tools, but the fact that they made them free across all platforms and they put so much promotion behind it kind of eclipsed it. I work with, a lot of people that work with Salesforce and they don't ever talk to me about Salesforce AI tools or, Einstein GPT has never been mentioned once in any meeting that I've had in the last year. So I think I've mentioned it, but nobody else has. So I think that things are going to get better and easier. I just want to see if, are we going to get some agents in there? Is that going to give us the capabilities where we're able to have a conversation with ChatSpot to not only learn about the portal itself, but to also create a multitude of things if we're going to be able to create a campaign and that's going to start setting up our assets for us so that we don't have to run all over and do every little thing. Right?
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure there's so much of this is in the application of it all, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think just the more accessible it becomes, especially on our phones. Like I just noticed
Oh,
this
yeah.
week, like I could chat like in the where I do text messages on my Google phone, I can now chat with Gemini
Yep.
and just making it that's where it's fun to think about all the different applied development that's happening because the
Mm-hmm.
more information they get through those channels, like ultimately helps everything get better as well. But in terms of HubSpot, this is where it's like as AI stuff gets rolled out, like understanding how much this is actual like HubSpot product versus because when you check out the betas, for some of this stuff, it's like, that's what I showed this morning. I'm like, all right, summarize button. I know you're not telling me something that
Right.
I could now get 3 steps in, and you show me this on the record, but largely because it's not in the right spot where they've trained it to look for the data, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of that. Like it's never a situation where it just like can scrape like the
They were
whole record yet, right?
they were just talking about this yesterday in terms of like that's one of the tests that they use for a lot of these bots when it comes to the context window is like they'll give it, an entire story about dragons. And then in the middle of it, somewhere, one sentence will say, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches are always made face side up. Something goofy. It doesn't really matter. And then after they've given it all the context, they'll ask it, hey, do you know how peanut butter and jelly sandwiches are made? To see if through all of that context, could it find the one detail that it needed? Or was it just, hallucinating and coming up with stuff, right? Um, so yeah, to your point, like that's kind of the direction we're headed in, where you're gonna be able to get that pinpointed answer. So like when these summaries happen now, you do the AI summarizations and the to-do lists and all that kind of stuff. It's gonna start to be like dead on accurate in terms of what the output is.
Yeah. And hopefully, I mean, I can't not. Like if you're using HubSpot, like and it's super clear that it's 100% accurate, that means if it's not giving you the information that you expect or want, something is wrong with your data or your setup. And hopefully that can help push, that data cleanliness, data literacy, all this
Hmm.
stuff in the right direction. Because there's going to be a lot of like, hey, uh, I think the AI is doing something. No, not that.
Yep.
So how can I help you do the other stuff? Because this is proven, right?
Yep.
Um, and some of the oh man, we can just see it now. Like we're already having to do that with almost everything in HubSpot. It's like, are you sure? Like,
Yeah.
just do it over here instead. Now we're good to go. So that was what was interesting today. Like, I know there's 7 meetings with Matthew, who I do the property show in the morning, that are all
Hmm.
listed as Let's Build, and the summary is not telling me anything about Let's Build. And it's like, clearly it sees the meetings over in ChatSpot, but then on the page it's got a bunch of blank like listed. So it's like, okay, the name must be somewhere else and it's not bringing the information from Google. And
Hmm.
that's the kind of stuff where it's like to the day where, you know, we shouldn't have to like, that's the stuff that gets fixed
Hmm.
and doesn't replace anybody because nobody's really doing that right most of the time anyways.
Right.
So yeah, like let's get out of the way and let it do that stuff. Um and be thankful for it when it gets here. Now it's like, oh, you still gotta figure out what the hell that means that you spent 7 episodes with Matthew when you're on the next call with him. Like
Right.
and no, that's where we take it to the next level. It's like, okay, this should be a series. Like, and this is how you could campaign it out. And this is the
Yes.
kind of value you would get from that.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. To have your own little, because that's the next step is co-pilots, assistants, like actual one-to-one assistants. Like it's not going to be too long from now, Chris. Like maybe 6 to 8
Yeah.
months from
I'm
now,
kind
you're
of
gonna
glad.
have
Like you
gonna have
said,
something.
this is good timing. We should probably wait to do this GTM stuff until we have 100% accuracy access.
Well, I
Because
definitely want to show the difference in what we did last time with like just researching the data and pulling that in versus creating a custom GPT around the data. Because I think that in and of itself will kind of start to show a little bit of like, okay, what's the difference in using these two things?
yeah, I think this is the hard part, like of being like showing up every day, every week, is like it allows you to talk about news
Hmm.
like this, which also makes it very hard to say like, all right, this is gonna be the 6 week series, like, and it's like, oh, I can't talk about this. How do I did that week 2. Like week 2 of the show, I was like, all right, I'm gonna have like data model Mondays and template Tuesdays, and then it's like, bam, content hub. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I
Yeah.
guess by workflow Wednesday, like I can't talk about you right now. Like I gotta unbox content. I'm like, I mean, seriously?
It's a
Uh,
thing where like you have to sadly, you have to put your dedicated stuff outside of your normal schedule almost. So like, you know, you do
nice
those
stuff though.
content drops, but they're, yeah, I know.
So then we
That's,
gotta get back to campaign management, and
yep,
that's the kind of
yep,
stuff that just
yeah.
we'll see, we'll see.
It's
I
a
think
whole
that's where
job,
it's
isn't
like,
it? It's a whole thing.
yeah. Well, that's where like I'm probably getting back to like Let's Build Daily at some point, where it's just like 15-minute hits,
Hmm.
and as you start to do this, you're like, oh, this is how news networks work. This is why
Yep,
they act exactly like this.
yep.
Like they gotta find time for the narratives, but also find time to talk about what's going on.
Hmm.
But that's why I think we gotta err on that, talk about what's going on right now, because it's like the only way we could possibly, keep up or
For
come
sure.
close to it, right? So this is awesome. Thanks for being on the ball today. Uh,
Yeah,
but this is like as we talk about this, it does make, if we have any hope of doing a series like that, like gotta be separate because next week, week before inbound,
yeah.
then
I
we
mean.
then it's like after inbound,
Week
so we got
after
to talk
inbound.
about what was at inbound. So maybe October sometime we
Yeah,
get to,
yeah. We'll kick it up. Look, we'll make it. It'll be a holiday special.
yeah, yeah, exactly. By that time, we just have the new GTM or
Oh
uh,
God, yeah. We'll have
the
the
new
new.
GPT ready, and like just use this, guys. You don't even need to
Yeah,
watch us do anything.
yeah,
Just pick this up. Just does everything you need. Well, I'm here for whatever that's gonna be, knowing that we're gonna take it as it comes, and be here to help keep people in the know while we can.
yeah, yeah. Help people navigate it.
So, let's see, had a tough time with this one today. What are we like? Yeah, if you can allow yourself to think about what 100% accurate might mean for you, especially if you're familiar with these tools, and or somebody maybe that you work with or hang out around that hasn't bought in just yet because they always had this scenario where it was wrong and they love telling you about that every time AI comes up. Find those opportunities, maybe share some of this info, and let's grow. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks, Nico.
Thank you, Chris.